Okay, we are officially live on Facebook.
Hey guys.
Oh gosh, I think it just showed me fixing my hair on there too.
It's like this camera right here.
Yeah, it goes back and forth between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll bounce back and forth. But that's our camera for sure.
Make sure your phones are off, please.
So I get a huge facial right here, right?
No, it actually does like an angle. It doesn't.
Oh, okay, cool.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, actually, you'll be able to see right here.
I'm familiar with the camera because I have pretty much the same webcam.
I'm going to fade the music out in a second because I don't want to listen. We actually literally are live on Facebook.
Hello,
Hey, Mark
Facebook.
Terry's
Hey,
joined.
Facebook.
Hey, everyone.
We got Mark and Jeff Camino.
That's a cool last name though, Camino, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Jeff Camino.
It's like Treveno.
Say it a couple different ways.
Hey, then you got
Italian.
Walker. What about Walker? I mean, come on now. That's awesome.
Walker, that's Ninja.
Ninja, yeah.
Well, it is, but it doesn't sound that way. Oh, Tom Allen's joined.
Right,
All right,
Tom.
fade out. You guys ready?
Ready?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Journey to Business radio show on Fishbowl Radio Network, brought to you out of Arlington, Texas. Wanted to tell you that we are going to have a great show tonight. I'm really excited about it. But remember, this is a show that you can grow yourself, Jeffrey,
Grow your business.
and grow your career. My name is Melissa Walker, here with
Jeff Camino.
And Jonathan Treveno.
Yeah, so we're going to have an exciting show tonight. Remember, it's based on reciprocity around here, so feel free to call in anytime at 214-431-5062. You can also check us out, Facebook Live. If you're not watching, go ahead and try to go on over there at Next Career Co., NEXTCAREERCO. Forgot the CO. And you can also check us out at www.j2bradio.com. And feel free to give us any advice. Feel free to send us referrals or ask for referrals. You can do that through the website. Again, it's www.j2bradio.com. All right, we've got an exciting show tonight. We're talking about business and careers with Mr. Jonathan Treveno. We had some wonderful conversations before the show, and so I think there's a lot of good stuff to talk about tonight. I'm really excited. So, Jonathan, real quickly, if you can just give us a quick update and overview about you and your background and what you're doing currently.
Awesome. So just to give you a little story about me, I actually fairly new to the recruitment business in a way that hasn't always been my background. So I actually started out in car sales, doing a little bit of recruiting in their business development center, bringing in salesmen, and then also recruiting people to buy cars. From then, I've kind of moved on into the corrugator industry. That was back in 2008. So the corrugator industry is actually pretty interesting. It's pretty cool how you can see how boxes are made, the whole 9 yards. And so what I'm doing right now is I've actually just discovered just different things about myself and how I could use my talents to kind of help people find jobs and help employers find people that are meaningful to their business.
Well, that's pretty much what we try to do in our career search, and that's the great thing to offer people. It's, the thing about staffing that's awesome is that it's an opportunity to really help people. And, I think anybody that has a good heart and a passion for people, that's just the industry they move into. And it sounds like you've been in a background or had a background of helping people throughout your entire career so far, so it sounds like a good place for you to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely is. And, when I actually think about it, nearly every job that I've actually had, I've actually got people in the door to work, with me. So whether that been a cousin or a friend, I've actually had that connection to open up doors for other people. So throughout my story, everything just kind of added up that way and kind of cultivated to what I'm doing now.
So tell us a little bit about that journey. I want to hear a little bit.
So, as I was saying, I was in car sales and, the corrugator industry. And, those were times where I was in a different phase of my life. I like to call it the BC era. If for people who don't know what that is, that's the before Christ era. So, just living just that life and going through every day, just the everyday grind of what actually work is. I kind of it led me to make a friend that I've known for so long, probably 10 plus years. Her name's Tanya. So she invited me to church one day, and actually that's kind of how everything got started for me, because I found myself serving every single time, every Sunday, and it just really, really made me hone that just passion for people and wanting to help people out. So fast forwarding how that relates to what I'm doing now and how I got into it is so when you're working for a church, you don't go and you work for the money, right? You go because you really want to help people out. You want to make a change, right? You want to make a change in your community, and that's what I've always had on my heart. And my serving actually landed me a job there, because when an opportunity opened up, I was able to step in. I already knew the building. I already knew what it took to maintain the building.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 3 years, and everything was going good. I think sometimes in your faith walk, you can almost get kind of stagnant. You can almost get to a certain level to where you're not constantly trying to level up in your own personal life. And so I reached that point. To where, I was like, you know what, God, there's got to be something more than this. I know I've got more than one talent. I know I've got 2 or 3 talents to offer. And, to use those talents.
You probably have more than 2 or 3 too.
Oh yeah, my wife won't say the same, but kind of. So I ended up just kind of really, really doing. I wouldn't call soul searching, but I was just evaluating myself, as which I think a lot of people should do, is just kind of evaluate yourself, trying to see how you can be a better person the next day.
Yeah, every day, every moment, you should be doing that.
Yes, and I could definitely attest to that. So. Just really, really thinking about it, I thought about how I was able to connect certain people, how I find myself in a group of CEOs and CFOs, and just looking at their positions and looking at my positions. I started to put 2 and 2 together. Like, look, I've got a pretty solid network, and I know a lot of people that are looking for jobs, for one, but not only that, but these people are looking for jobs, not looking for meaningful work. And there's a difference. I think there's a really, really big difference between trying to find a job and then trying to find meaningful work.
There's a huge difference. And what I always try to say is, like, it's finding a job or finding a career, and then it's getting one that inspires you by your passion and what you're supposed to be doing. And when you're living what you're supposed to be doing, your passion and your purpose.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like working. It's life.
Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing better than getting up in the morning and actually looking forward to what you're going to do for the day. Yeah.
No, yeah, and I could totally agree with that. So there was a little point to where I was waking up, and it was and the way I like to put it is, just going on your faith. You get grace every day, right? So if I'm not really living up to my potential, or living up to, or utilizing the talents that I've been given, that I'm almost kind of wasting that grace. And that's kind of how I felt inside when I was kind of going through all that. So instead of me trying to go out and trying to think of something on my own, I just kind of sat there quiet, and I said, okay, God, I'm at a crossroad. What do you want me to do? And, lo and behold, all these different connections and people from different recruiting agencies and staffing agencies. I was making all these different connections within my church, and with just my resume was out there also. So I was getting all these different calls, and it just clicked in my head of really what the gist of the job is of staffing and recruiting. So when you have a strong network, that's definitely going to help you, but a lot of it is person-to-person contact. It's the human element that's in that makes what staffing and recruiting like different, or an interesting industry to want to get in, just from that aspect of it. And so that's fast forward. That's where we are now. So about 6 months ago is when I reached everything, and I guess you could call it an aha moment. But
there's lots of those whenever you own a business, that's for sure.
There is lots of them. So I was literally doing my duties inside the church, and I was listening to this Q&A. Pastor T.D. Jakes was getting interviewed by a man named Stephen Furtick, right? And he started to talk, and what he said is he was a Pastor T.D. Jakes was actually on a board of advisors with a whole bunch of CEOs, and it came down to it to where he said, you know what, guys, it's not a matter of where we want to go. We all know where we want to go, but the question is, what are we willing to leave behind? And when I heard that, just the conviction that kind of hit me, because, and I left this part out, but being employed by the church or working for the church was a goal. It was a dream of mine. It was something that I wanted to do. It was something that I thought, okay, this is how I'm going to make my mark. This is how I'm going to help people, right? And after I kind of assessed it, I was like, wow, so I need to leave this behind in order to make a greater impact.
Well, that's the thing is, like, you set goals, but once you achieve those goals, it's also setting the bigger goal. And everything that you set in a goal is a milestone to get to the bigger picture, right? To where you want to ultimately end up. So that's exactly what you did. You got what you needed to do, but then you realized that you could do even more by doing what you're doing now.
And I'm starting to find that out, because when I tell you certain just relationships that are being made and just certain opportunities that I've had within the past couple of months, it's just been mind-blowing. I mean, these are things that I could not have written up or even journaled out. I mean, there's things that are just happening. It's just,
you don't trade owning a business or opening up a business or living life with a purpose for anything in the world. I know for me, in the couple of years that I owned a company, I could not say my entire life I had ever learned as much as I did during that time frame.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
it's just so much, and you get so many cool experiences, and you get to help a lot of people.
Yeah, no, you do. And I'm in that early process, or that early stage of really trying to make all that happen. But again, I think that when your goal is to help people, well, you can not help but reap that in return, right? So, I really believe in the whole process of reaping and sowing, right? So when you do sow good seed, as far as trying to help somebody out, find a job, not even considering money, just the sheer fact that you love people and you want to help people out, that you can't help but reap that in return. And that's not the motive. It's just the process that you kind of go through when you do that.
So some people, call it different things, but it's funny. Whenever I used to work in the corporate world, I was working with leaders, and with working with the leaders, they were making some pretty important people decisions. So I used to carry this notebook that on the front page, it said karma. And so what I did that for is, so subliminally, I'm hoping that as they're making decisions, they see that karma and they're thinking twice about every decision they made. So it's the same concept of reaping what you sow, but it was kind of a strategic plan to help make sure they were making right decisions, because we dealt with people decisions. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it's kind of so find a karma book; it helps. So tell us a little bit. You ended up in the dental industry, correct?
Yes. So, and that's actually an interesting story too. So I tried to, for the life of me, to get my wife, who I think is watching, to come up here.
She commented. So.
Oh, nice. Well, I tried to get her to come up here and just to talk a little bit. I said, hey, you know what, honey? I said, I'm going to do majority of the talking, but I could really use your perspective in dentistry and kind of what we're doing. And she was like, do you want vomit all over the floor? And I was like, no, okay, I guess we're not going to go that route. So she was really she gets real nervous at times. And
it is a nerve-wracking thing, but once you're on here, you realize it's not that bad.
Right. You stop sweating and everything. So getting into like the dental industry, how that kind of happened is literally once I was going through all of that, kind of reevaluating myself, I started to try to get strategic about it and how we're helping people. And so what I looked at is looking at the amount of work history between us two and where the majority of the talent or experience was in the industry. It had to go to her, which is she's been in the dental industry for about 15 plus years. And so growing with her on her growing with her during her journey is actually kind of how it turned me on, because she started from the ground up. And when I say she started from the ground up, she literally was a front office receptionist, brand new dentistry, probably like it's a one-man show. And she eventually worked her way up to where she is now in an office manager position. And the interesting thing about that I found interesting was that how easy it is to actually get into a dental career. But shifting the focus to the staffing part of it, that's actually kind of where I felt like we could make the biggest impact, because as you go further north, right, you go further north towards the McKinney area, Anna area, it's starting to expand, right?
A little bit.
And when you take a look at it, so I lived in Anna for about 10 years. And literally, when I moved there was nothing there. I go back, and visit my mom and dad, and I see 2 dentistries popped up right next to each, or literally across the street from each other. I'm like, wow, okay. 2 right across the street from each other. So doing a little bit of research, you can't help but notice that no matter what town you're in, or no matter where you go, you're always going to have that need for dentistry, whether it's
That's true.
cosmetic, whether it's, disease oriented, whatever it is, there's always going to be that need, just like a doctor.
So it's a niche, but it's a very big niche, huh?
It is. And you can actually take that niche a couple of different ways. So people coming in as far as maybe a dental assistant can actually take that couple of different career paths. So I've known certain dental assistants that have been doing it for maybe 15 plus years, and it actually turned into a career of selling dental equipment. So you're talking about a certain dental assistant that's been very versed in a certain software, right?
Okay.
So they know about the software. Now they get a job with the company of the software, and next thing you know, they're traveling around the country teaching these other dentists how to work the software, and it turns into a lucrative career for them in that aspect. But it all started from being at the and when I say the bottom, I mean dental assisting as far as a position of authority, right?
Right, sure. Yeah.
So
it's interesting. So, when I hear the dental industry, of course, you think dentist, dental hygienist, but you've got a great point that there's just a lot of more infrastructure around all of that, and a lot of more types of employment available for people, huh?
Well, yeah, and I mean that's going to be the in my opinion, if you take a look, if your overall goal is to be a dentist or a dental hygienist, that's actually not a bad route to go, is to get in as a dental assistant, taking your courses. Because if you take a look at most schooling programs now, you can get your RDA in less than a year, right? So once you get those certifications, and that's really what a lot of the dental industry or employers are looking for right now, is like, that's going to be one of the main questions. Are they RDA certified? Do they have nitrous oxide? Do they have coronal polishing? And it's, to them, it's a certificate, but it just kind of gives them a grasp of, okay, she got a little bit of experience on it. I don't have to go too much further to kind of train this individual. And then from there, the sky's the limit in what you want to do.
So what are some of the big challenges that you face when you're recruiting with in this industry? Anything in particular, or anything that's special to this industry?
Yes, and a lot of it is not going to be it's not going to be per se in skill set, but a lot of it's going to be within your attitude. So how I can relate that is looking at the pediatric industry that my wife actually manages. You have to have a team building attitude. You have to have zero pride when you walk into the door, because the way that it's actually ran, you actually have dental assistants doing the office work. You even have certain dental hygienists that are actually doing certain office work. And, when you go to dental hygiene school, you go through just the trouble of all that. And then somebody's asking you to do a check on a patient, or to check out somebody, answer a phone, and you're like, well, I didn't go to school for that. And that's what I mean, the difficulty of finding a person that's like that, because we all have pride, right? Right? Who doesn't?
Right.
And so having that, really being able to filter that out from a person is, I think, what's going to set the difference for most people that we're funneling through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the biggest thing. So actually, I have a story that relates to that. Just happened within the past few weeks. So right now, I'm recruiting for a dental assistant. So I want to talk to all orthodontic assistants, dental assistants, anybody from the dental industry. I want to talk to you. But so for this specific role, it was a orthodontic assistant, and I had an interview with the candidate. We met at a local Starbucks, and she gave me her resume, and we started to conduct the interview. Now, this person, from a standpoint, her attitude just she had a really entitling personality. More like, and I'm going to try to impersonate a little bit, but
we're going to have impersonations on here, everybody. Careful.
So we were just talking, we were interviewing, and I was just kind of letting her know, hey, this is what the position's about, this is the pay, just giving her the rundown, and I wasn't taken back, but at the same time, in my mind, I was thinking, oh my God. But so anyway, she was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, everything sounds great, Mr. Jonathan. But, I just want to make sure that, it's the right fit for me. And, I got to leave at 5:30 every day because I got to get my kid. I got to get my kid by 6 o'clock. And, certain places, they didn't like that. So I had to, leave, and and keep in mind the resume that I received from her was very choppy. So there were places where she was employed for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. It wasn't a resume that I would personally submit to anybody, but that's okay. That's kind of what I got into the business for, was to help people out.
I mean, that's part of it, is that you got to help them learn how to do their resume and how to speak to people, and that's the part about recruiting companies. And one of the reasons I say for people to try out recruiting companies, because you get that opportunity to learn how to look for a job, how to do things the right way, how to put your resume in, how to answer questions like that where they may not have answered it quite the right way.
And what's funny about that is, so she actually talked to the business manager at the dentistry that my wife works for, and it wasn't a good fit because she talked to the same attitude, right? The same entitling personality. And the reason why how I found that out was because I interviewed her and I thought she'd be a great candidate once I got to know her. But apparently she had already talked to the people that I was referring her to, so she kind of shot herself in the foot in that aspect. But going back to the story, she had actually, she started telling me all that. I started to kind of assess it. And then something just kind of built up within me where I was just like, you know what, let me talk to you a little bit. Let me impart something to you. And if you get offended, please just let me know and I'll kind of back down. I said, but what if you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot right now? What if you have a great opportunity that's going to be great for your family? You're a single mom. You're going to have a job that's going to have great insurance. You're going to be making great pay. You're not going to be a temporary worker. You're going to be getting 40 plus hours a week. But what if you just tweaked a little bit of your attitude so that you can make it work? And what I told her, and I think it kind of hit her kind of hard, was basically that there are no perfect jobs. You make the job perfect. It's your attitude. It's what you bring that's going to make that job a pleasant place to go to.
And what you bring that may make it unpleasant for other people. So
well, that's good advice for everybody, right? There
Truly.
are no perfect jobs, and it's an attitude, right?
And
no
grass
matter what.
is never greener on the other side, let me tell you.
Right.
It's not. I got experience there too. So I was just kind of, trying to impart any type of wisdom that I've learned that's helped me in my life and try to give it to her. I even went as far as busting out a Sharpie and telling about her
don't
resume.
bust out the Sharpie. It's all downhill from there. Was it red?
Exactly. Circle it right here.
Yeah.
Yes or no. So I just kind of broke it down to her on, if she were to submit that resume through a applicant tracking system or a system that's just going to look for keywords, I said, you're going to get caught in that black hole. And she goes, is that why I don't get phone calls back from, certain organization? I said, that could be a reason why. I said, another reason could have been because you have 5 different jobs within the past year, and then every job you did the same thing, but you literally copy and pasted what you did into every slide.
Oh, wow.
I said, this right here, I said, normally most recruiters are going to take a look at it for 13 seconds.
13? I wouldn't give it that long.
And I was being generous. So I said, and then it's out the door. And I said, because I said, if you look at the reality of this, I said, they're on a time crunch to get to serve their clients in an excellent way by being prompt, by getting them prompt candidates, by giving them in a timely manner. And when you have a resume like that, I said, it's going to be easily tossed. Now, from talking to you, I said, I know you know what you're talking about. I said, but the attitude is probably going to be something that holds you back. And it was almost like her jaw hit the floor, because once we had concluded and we started to kind of wrap things up, she just said, hey, you know what, Jonathan, I just wanted to let you know, like, nobody's ever talked to me like that. Nobody's ever told me, what you just told me. She goes, and I just want you to know that regardless if I get this job or not, I walked away with so much from this interview that I've walked away from.
That's awesome.
And she's like, I've talked to recruiters, I've talked to everybody, and I've never found anybody as genuine or willing to tell me like it is. And so she pretty much walked away, I guess, with some maybe unsolicited advice.
Well, and that's what you should do. I mean, if you're a good recruiter and you're in it for the right reasons, then you're going to take the time to do what you just did.
Yeah, and based on how I can just perceive your mannerisms and stuff, you did it in such a way that it wasn't confrontational, and so you're giving good constructive advice, and that's a big difference. So
unlike me, I'd be like, yeah, no, no, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
I've had tons of times of giving good advice,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just stems from being helped out, right? So, we've all been helped out, right? Yeah. And then, who are we to not help somebody else out?
Right.
And it just boils down to, you don't know what you don't know. So she was just oblivious to the fact that her resume was getting picked apart by a computer. Or you weren't putting...
Who was it? A lady that I used to work with called me today, and she was saying there's a whole article out there about ATS systems, and that they're getting like redone because of that, because it takes out the human factor. And a lot of people that are really good talent, like what you mentioned with this lady, great talent, just didn't know how to portray it in the right manner. So they're trying to look at ATS systems, or the black hole is what people call them, to make sure that people that are good talent get looked at.
That's good, because most of us don't know. When you're on the outside looking in the recruiting industry, you don't know how to tune your resume. You think, well, hey, look, I'm conveying all the information, but I'm just not presenting it the way that these computerized systems are working, and it's hurting both ends, right? You can't make everybody know how to do that overnight, and then it's also hurting the recruiters, because obviously then they're missing out on good candidates as well. So that's good to hear.
And that's why we have this show, so more people can hear these kind of things, right?
Man, exactly.
But the thing is that that's why I always believe in the referral process, because it brings back that human interaction.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm a hiring manager and I'm going to look at somebody, if somebody refers them over to me, I'm going to pretty much talk to them, and that's how you get past the black
I just
hole,
got completely over the ATS.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
You get it on the right hands and the right desk and the right pile.
I mean, I can understand, because when you have a multi-million-dollar corporation or whatever it is, and you're trying to decipher the thousands of applications that come in, I can understand the need to have something like that. But I'm actually interested in reading that article that you're talking about trying to perfect that a little bit, so that you can actually get these people that are submitting, good people that are submitting their resumes. And what I found out too recently is that it comes down to certain keywords, for most of them, right? So especially
it does.
And from the aspect of posting a job, if you want somebody to hit on your job, you want to make sure that you're putting the title, or even something that's in the title, at least 4 to 5 times in your posting, to make sure that it's getting the visibility. And these are certain things that I've slowly
and attracting
started.
the right talent. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, that's 100% true. And there's so many intricacies when it comes to the staffing or hiring that people don't realize. And that's the funny thing, is there's so many companies out there that are looking for the best talent. And there's so much of the best talent looking for the best companies. Yeah. And we still haven't perfected the way to bring it all together, I think. So maybe we can invent that.
Right? And kind of give me some ideas going. And I think a lot of that, though, is going to be hit or miss, because, I think when somebody comes to me and tell me they're having a hard time finding a job, in my mind, I'm like, no, it's not that you can't find a job, is that you can't find the right job that you want. Because I've always had opportunities to where I could take this career path or I could take this job, but I'm not going to settle for this or do this. So there's certain maybe networking groups that you can go to, and you'll take a look at the demographic, and maybe you'll see, a lot of people ages 40 and up that are actually looking for jobs. So these are your, your CEOs or your production managers that have been laid off for the younger guy that will take less money, right? And so it puts them in a more hard position to find a job because they're so used to running the show. And a lot of it's going to boil down to, am I willing to work for somebody underneath me, right? And it's all about how bad you want it. So am I okay with not having a job, or do I want to swallow my pride, and do I want to get hired doing something totally different than what I've done in the past 10 years? So, I mean, there's jobs out there. It's just a matter of, finding that fit. And of course, we all want to persuade people to pursue a career.
Yeah, and I think it's not only that, but it's also making sure that you're finding the right fit, but you're doing the effort and the work that it takes to get there. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm looking for a job, right? And so, hey, I'm going to go to a networking group, and I've looked for a job today. But looking for a job is a full-time job. And looking for a career is definitely a full-time job.
Yes.
And if you don't put the energy and effort in it, then you're not going to make it. And I think just last week on the show, we had an intern in here, or somebody who's a college student who's looking for an internship. And gosh, if everybody looked for a job like her, I don't think anybody would be unemployed. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, it's making sure that you're finding the right job. I
didn't get to catch a lot of that episode. So was she just like, I've heard a couple crazy stories on what people have done to get jobs, and some of them I'm just like, wow, like it worked for you, but I could never do that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I didn't say this to her, and I should have. It's a matter of tracking what you're doing even and seeing what's productive and what's not. Because I think a lot of people keep doing the same thing that's not working, and they end up nowhere, and they wonder why. So it's tracking what different avenues you're taking and which ones are getting you closer or further, or getting a career coach or somebody to help you with it.
That's a great point, too. And kind of, bridging what you both are saying is, if your resume is not getting some phone calls or something, you probably ought to take an extra look at that and see, well, maybe there's a reason why, and start to analyze.
Because there's resources out there.
And then on the other hand, if you're getting
day.
interviews, but then you're not getting follow-up interviews, you need to start evaluating, well, what are your interviews looking like? So, it's different stages that you probably have to examine.
So now that you said that, if you've never heard of Frisco Connect, so Frisco Connect is basically
amazing.
So right? That's
where we met.
Yeah, that's exactly where we met.
That's
Trevor
amazing.
Houston. Shout out to Trevor Houston for getting us hooked up together.
And Foster.
Yeah, Foster. Wow. I had to do that just in case if he's looking at it, that he's known for saying wow about everything.
Oh my gosh, and then he goes, Melissa Walker.
He's a personality.
He is, but he's amazing.
So being there, you've probably...
And Trevor, shout out, by the way.
Trevor Houston. Love that guy.
And Mark.
So you've heard of the Pit Crew, right?
Oh, I love the Pit Crew. I send people there all the time.
So that is a very...
I never can remember the name, though. I'm always like, there's this thing that's on Wednesdays, and you have to go to this website to find it, because I can never remember the name, but just look for this.
That's the only reason why I remembered it, is because it was the Pit Crew, right? Practice interviews. So that's when you were saying about interviews, why am I not getting called back? So that's a great resource to go to as well, because they will ask you those tough questions, put you on the spot to answer them, right?
Right. Yeah, there's nothing better than modeling that and, getting repetitive. I know I've heard Melissa tell people, practice your interviews. And
yeah, and I don't know about everybody else, but I can't sit there and practice in front of a mirror to myself or to my boyfriend or my husband or whatever, wife. I don't know. I don't have a wife, but anyways, somebody I know, I can't practice with them. But going out there where you're getting with real hiring managers that are actually making hiring decisions, so you might actually end up getting a job, but you're getting that feedback and that process to get critiqued is huge, because most people aren't professional interviewers. And I see people all the time. They're like, oh, I'm a perfect interview. I've never not gotten a job. And then all of a sudden they're not getting the job. And they're like, do you want to listen now, or do you want to keep being the professional that you are?
Right,
totally.
It's time that you have to stop and just listen to what people have to say, because things do change over time too.
Oh, 100%.
That's why that group is, those are all amazing groups. So
yeah, I look forward to, I expressed interest in, maybe trying to volunteer a little bit for it. And I'm always looking to volunteer or doing some kind of, so that actually puts me in a position to kind of see a different aspect of how these other people are interviewing other people, right? You know, it kind of makes me perfect my process, and that's kind of what the gist of it for me is. But being that it's a great resource, it's actually something to forward to candidates that are looking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the funny thing is about interviews, too, is that managers don't usually know how to interview. And there's also multiple types of interviews. So just because you've been in one type of interview in one scenario and gotten a job doesn't mean that the next one you're going to go to isn't going to be the same. It's not going to be the same thing. So you get behavioral interviews, you get situational interviews, you get lunchtime interviews, there's different techniques to each one to be successful. So taking the time to talk to somebody who understands what those are and learn how to make it through each of those and how to answer questions and what type of questions to ask even in the interview is really important.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And that's why recruiting companies, again, are great because they can give you some of that advice.
100%.
And groups like Frisco Connect, South Lake. Yeah,
that's a great point. You know, it's like a sports team that only knows how to run one play, but, you know, you're up against another team that has a different play, then you better be able to counter that. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had my fair share of interviews where I just kind of went in. Well, let me say this. Every interview that I've ever went through just went in. And when I say blind, I mean like not prepared, like not doing the research or having a target list for companies that I work with. And that's a great strategy, right, to have those target lists. And
yeah.
but I never did that. I literally walked in and, I've had different things said about my character, about my genuineness, if that's how you say that, genuineness.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. There we go. I like that word better. It's longer.
A couple syllables, I think.
A couple syllables. Makes you sound smarter. Authenticity. So that's
well, next time you see me,
what
be like, I'm very authentic today.
Yeah. Every day. Every day.
I believe that actually from what I've seen so far. So.
Well, that's literally what I go in. The interviews that I've had, and just pretty much just been myself. But you really can't do that in different settings. Some people just aren't ready for you, so
not ready for Jonathan. Maybe
I
don't know.
It was John T. They're not ready for John T. That was the name back in the day. It's like,
yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. It's how it's trying to match up with that manager, the person you're talking to, and you always hear it's a mirror. You're trying.
That's what I was going to say. Body language and mirroring, like even presidents do it if you look at them. So it's all about mirroring the interviewer. And I 100% agree. If they're slouching, you slouch.
Yeah.
They're not.
If they're casual, although you got to be careful, but if they're kind of being a little casual and maybe chill out a little bit, but if they're very formal, stick with the formality and
Yeah, I mean, I think that works in a lot of cases too to kind of mirror that. I think in my eyes, I kind of try to maintain the same posture throughout the whole time. I don't want with anybody you can see certain breaks in a person's character, right? And my whole thing is I want to be genuine, right? You want to be authentic. So if somebody's slouching, I let them slouch. But I'm going to maintain my posture just because that's who I am. And I totally agree with that. And I think it works out in a bunch of different scenarios. But, obviously there's no one right way to do everything, right? There's always more than one way to get to a place.
Yeah, I never recommend slouching. But you know what I mean? Like when they're talking, maybe they're a little looser with their conversation, joking around or something, and you can kind of match that a little bit.
I think in those interviews is where I've excelled, where they're more, hey, let's have a conversation. Tell me about you. Those are kind of where I've excelled. Now, if I've been asked, just certain questions, what if an employee did this, what would you do? And you know what I mean? There's certain aptitude questions that they ask you, and, you have to adapt a little bit, but when you, if I could give any tip to somebody that's interviewing or to somebody that's trying to get a job, it would be to just be you, because there's only one you, right? And so there's a lot of clones in the world, but only one Jeff Camino. And so Jeff Camino
definitely only one Jeff Camino.
That's it. Well, I mean, if you look at mine, there's a lot of Jonathan Trevenos out there. They may not put the little squiggly or the inye on the end, but there's a lot of Jonathan Trevenos out there.
Do you put the little squiggly on the end? Because I haven't seen it on your name. I don't know.
I didn't do it on the business card, but It's internal.
It's in your heart.
Yes, yes. It's internal. How I say it.
That's how he says it.
So let me ask this question. So you're in the dental industry. I mean, where do dental people hang out? Like,
Right, yeah, I was going to ask
like,
the
where do
very
you
same
find a
question.
group or conglomerate of dental people, or
Yeah.
is that easy to do? Or
Well, I mean, most dental professionals are just like any other professional out there. They hang out where pretty much everywhere else hangs out. They have a hard day at work, and they may unwind at
the
home.
bar?
or, bars, whatever it is. But if you're talking about where would you find talent for dental industry, you'll find it in various places. And what I found out is that is literally who that's kind of got me to that point, because my wife being in the industry for over 10 years, we've made friends. So the braces that I have on now are actually I was referred to a certain orthodontic, and me and him just actually happened to hit it off, and made a connection that way. And through making those connections, you actually meet new people. So at one of the organizations that I went to, as far as like job networking, I've actually met a couple of people that were looking for dental jobs. And so I wouldn't say there's like a certain corner store that they're hanging out at, or a certain bar that they're hanging out at, but they're literally normal people like me and you that are trying to unwind or have families. And
Yeah, well, it's probably good for you, right? Because there was just one place and everybody just connect there. But
so
obviously
easy,
they need
right?
someone like you to facilitate that. So.
You wouldn't need me if everybody
right.
was hiding at the same place, right?
Exactly. Yeah, although I could see where you would have a big advantage if you went to some kind of industry conference or something and just started collecting names and getting a kind of a build up a list of people that are looking for jobs or they're potentially looking for employees, etc.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to Melissa because, as she was saying, we had a brief conversation before the show, talked about some interesting things, and she actually turned me on to a thought that I had been thinking about, but I never really put it into taking those steps. But as far as really getting into the dental schools, because I do know a lot of dental schools, and I even know some dental, I guess, teachers, if you will, within my network. And I've always had it in the back of my mind to connect with those individuals, but I never looked at it as an aspect because of what I'm looking for now.
Yeah.
So I've been looking for an orthodontic assistant with experience. So in my mind, I was like, well, I don't really need any new fresh meat right
Everybody's
now.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
who knows?
exactly
I
right.
mean, if this is a long-term gig for you, then you build up that pipeline, and 5 years from now they will have experience.
And that's where I was shooting myself in the foot, because the goal is longevity. So having that pipeline, and like I said, I was just telling her before the show, like, hey, I've thought about it, but I haven't thought about it, and I'm glad you brought it up about the dental schools and hanging out there and really just putting in my time in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the benefit of being in this industry since I was like born. I mean, that's the whole thing about recruiting and getting the best talent is coming up with innovative ways to find people, or not innovative ways. That's what I was saying. Like, start up your own meetup. I mean, get some people together, make them form, and storming, norming, forming. Bring them together if they're not together, so you can get the best talent.
Yeah, leave it to Melissa to think outside the box. She's always.
I never get inside. Like,
I
I try to put me back in there, it just doesn't happen. I don't know. No, but you know what? I wanted to point out real quick that I want to make sure we get your contact information. Tell us what you're looking for again, if you have any specific jobs that are open right now, and how people can get in touch with you, because we actually, believe it or not, an hour goes by fast. We're getting close to the end of the show.
Wow.
And we haven't taken any breaks yet, so the content must have been good.
Yeah. I told him before the show, if it's bad content, he's going to have a commercial. So, he must have been doing good. That's kind of mean.
So what we're looking for right now is we're really looking for orthodontic assistants that actually have experience changing bands, doing the actual work. So in most offices, you're going to see a lot of the assistants doing majority of the work, while the orthodontist is there to kind of look over the shoulder to make sure that they're doing everything right. It's just kind of how it's set up in certain places. So with this certain employer, they're fairly new at it, and so they need somebody that already knows what they're what they need to do coming into the door. So I'm really looking for experience in that. Now, this is totally in the totally different direction than dental industry, but I'm actually looking for insurance sales producers as well to go along with a company that's looking to hire. They're actually looking for, and this is the way that they put it, they're looking for money-hungry individuals. Now, I didn't advertise it that way, but that's kind of what they're looking for. So the best way to get into contact with me is to actually, there's a couple of different ways. So you can actually go to my website, which is elevatedhiring.com, and it's just exactly how you spell it, elevatedhiring.com. You can actually go to the job seeker page and just fill out your information. It'll send an email to me and I'll take it. Or if you just want to go with the good old-fashioned email, you can just send your resumes and your thoughts to Jonathan T at elevatedhiring.com. And that's Jonathan spelled Jonathan and then T at elevatedhiring.com.
I think I've been spelling your name wrong. I'm sorry.
You did. I didn't say it.
You should have said it, so I fixed it, because then I kept doing it.
Well, and so he tells you on the
like
radio.
after
right?
we have already been advertising the
calls you
show.
out.
He's like, hey, by the way, yeah, you messed up on that.
They
sorry.
can pronounce the name. That's the most important.
That was smart marketing, because now it's a bigger impact, right?
Right.
I didn't know about the little squiggly either, because I didn't see that. I mean, I just messed it all up.
It's all good. It's all good. People got the gist. Jonathan Treveno, whether they spelled it. Trust me, I've had people spell my name with H. I've had people say my name Treviano. Are you Italian? No, it's Trevino. Oh, okay.
What is it, Jeff Camino or Camino?
I don't know. I've heard a few different versions.
Heard a couple of them on
recently.
the show, yeah. Anyways. So that's a great way for people to reach you, and you've got a couple of positions open. That sounds good. And, if you're in that industry, make sure you reach out to Jonathan at Elevate
Workforce and Recruiting is the company, and elevatedhiring.com is the website. And even if you're not a dental assistant or you're not insurance, but you're still looking for a job, I mean, literally, I know people, and if I can help you out just by referring you somewhere, I mean, please, I mean, you almost owe it to yourself to kind of get your name out there, get your resume out there. I mean, the worst anything can happen is people say no. But at least you did it. At least you planted that seed and kind of put it out there. So I mean, I'm always willing to accept resumes and place them in my network where I can.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great. See, I mean, everything you said shows that you're a great company. You have a great heart behind it. I'm sure all of your staff, that's the culture, from what I understand, that you have behind you. And so, I mean, I think that anybody in that profession definitely should reach out. One of the things that you just pointed out is a good company is one that isn't worried about getting a placement. It's about helping people and getting them to the right place. And it sounds like that's where your heart is. And so, the fact that you're willing to send them out to your network. And by the way, recruiters are one of the most networked group of people you can ever meet in your life.
Yes, they are.
It sounds like a great company. And I mean, I find anybody, and in fact, I know some people in the dental industry, I'm sending them your way for sure.
No, I definitely appreciate it. And it's been a great opportunity. So I thank you guys first and foremost for just inviting me out on the show and just kind of really exposing my company, who I am, what we're about, and the positive impact that we're trying to make. I mean, any opportunity like this, it's always a blessing. It's always something to definitely walk in and be a part of. Plus, I mean, you're on the radio, right? So, hey, that's like a bucket list item.
We even have video, which, by the way, I just want to warn everybody when they watch this video, I kind of broke it, so it's a little bit of like going back and forth in weird ways, but we try.
The voices.
Yeah.
Well, it must have been something right. We got Tom Allen said outstanding show, so.
Oh, good.
that's
I
always
feel
good to
much
hear.
better now. Thank you,
Yeah.
Tom. Thank you,
I
Tom.
know Tom Allen.
How could we not
thank
have a good show with Jonathan? I'm sorry.
John.
I'm just going to change your name
Jonathan
now. I can't
T.
spell it, so I'm just going to change it to where I can,
My wife calls me something totally different when she's angry. So
I don't. We'll keep that off the show. It's kind of not
a little
professional,
bit.
Yeah, so I wanted to remind everybody that you can also, if you want to send any referrals or anything over to Jonathan, if you have any questions, advice, whatever, you can send that over through the email that's on the website, www.j2bradio.com. There's a spot on there to send emails to the show or send referrals, so we'd love to, get some information to help Jonathan grow his business and help some dental professionals out there. Do you also work with the dentists themselves?
Like as far as
Like, do you help place dentists?
Yeah. So we do everything. So our niche
Orthodontics, all of it, right?
Yeah. So if you're in the dental industry, you're looking to get into the dental industry, we want to talk to you. We want to talk to every aspect of it.
Well, real quick, just, I have to ask this question because the first thing I think about, and this is horrible, but I have to say it, in the dental industry, like every time I go in, I'm like, I wonder if they're depressed. Like, so if you're staffing for it, are you depressed? No, I was kidding. I think that's such a myth, but I'm just kidding. But I do think that, really.
Again, I think that's going to boil down to where you walk in. Now, if you walk into the dentistry that my wife runs, it's totally different. I get what you're saying, though. You walk in.
It's just the old myth,
Oh, yeah, it is. But, you're trying to see 60 patients and, a full days of work, and then somebody's late, and, it can get some buttons pushed a little bit.
I've seen some interesting teeth and mouths, too.
I've had one of them.
Okay, we'll keep that off the show, too. That's good. But sorry, that caught me off guard. Well, again, this is the Journey to Business radio show, so thank you again, Jonathan, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank
you.
Yeah, it's been a very cool conversation. Again, your website one more time. I know we've said it a couple, but one more time.
ElevatedHiring.com. Oh, I'll keep saying it. ElevatedHiring.com.
Elevated.
Elevated.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. Again, Journey to Business radio show brought to you by Fishbowl Radio Network here in Arlington, Texas. Make sure you tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m. And remember, you say it this time, Jeff.
Life is a journey.
Life is limitless. Are you ready to own your journey? We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
All right.
We're still on Facebook Live. So before we get off, I need you to do like a little dance of whatever kind. Thank you. All right. We captured that. Cool.
My wife's going to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe you just did that.
I'm going to collect all those. I get everybody to do a dance, and I'm going to collect them, and I'm going to be making a video. Ready? Bye, Facebook. Say goodbye, y'all.
Bye,
Wait, hold on.
Facebook.
Ready? Wait, do it again. One more time. Say goodbye.
Bye, Facebook.
I had to do the camera transition.